to the How Did They Do It Real Estate podcast. Have you ever wondered how people succeed in real estate and what steps they took to get there? If so, this podcast is for you. Your hosts, Sayla and Eileen Prack, interview top experts in the real estate community to share with you their real estate journey and how they achieved massive success. Our goal is to provide you with valuable real estate resources and to help you apply it to your own real estate goal. Welcome, everyone, to today's episode of the How Did They Do It Real Estate podcast. I'm your host, Eileen Prack, and today I'm really excited to bring you our guest today, Rich Fettke, who is the author of The Wise Investor, a modern parable about creating financial freedom and living your best life. He's a licensed real estate broker, active investor, and co-founder of Real Wealth, a real estate investment group that helps its 60,000 plus members improve their financial intelligence, secure passive income, and obtain financial freedom. He's also the author of Extreme Success and the audio program Momentum, and his work has been featured on TV, radio, and in print, including USA Today, Entrepreneur Magazine, and the Wall Street Journal. So I'm super excited to have him on the show today. He and Kathy have built a tremendous following group community. They provide a ton of tremendous value. And so I'm sure today I'm really excited to have him come share a little bit about himself and what he's doing today. So welcome to the show, Rich. How are you doing?
Really good. And thanks for having me.
So Rich, can you share with us a little bit more about just your background and how you got started with real estate, and especially how you and Kathy started with Real Wealth?
Yeah, it was 20 years ago this year. I was 37 years old, on top of my game. I had just signed that book deal with Simon & Schuster for my first book. I had a thriving business coaching practice and everything seemed great. And then I was diagnosed with melanoma and the doctor told me that I had 6 months to live. Thankfully, it was a misdiagnosis. I did have melanoma, but it did not make it to my liver. So that's why I'm here today. But that was not knowing and going from test to test over the period of 3 months, not knowing if I was going to be alive. That was the impetus for Kathy to find a way to make ends meet if I died. So she started to seek out mentors and people who are financially successful. And she connected with a mortgage broker who is also a real estate investor. And he said, he showed her, this is the way you can do this. And so she was all excited about it. She's like, this is what I can do to make ends meet. And in that process, after her studying and us learning and her seeking out the mentorship, that's when I got the news that I was cancer-free after the surgeries. But that's what kicked us into gear into getting into real estate and found a new way to financial security. So we were living in the San Francisco Bay Area at the time, and we went out to Dallas area and we bought 5 investment properties. This was back in 2003. And that was our foray into real estate investing and learning how to be landlords. And that set us on this path.
What a scary journey that must have been through between you and Kathy and what you had to experience. But thank goodness it was a false diagnosis and that wasn't a terminal. But I can only imagine the strength that both you and Kathy had to go through in order to, try to prepare your lives and try to prepare things and settle things, in the event that something could have happened.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we were definitely in that belief. It was kind of like 80% of me was saying, I'm not going to die. I'm going to overcome this. Everything's going to be fine. And Kathy kind of said that she had a more belief than that everything was going to go well. But there still was that 20% of the time, that little voice of like, I'm not going to see my daughters grow up and get married. I'm not going to see my grandkids. And yeah, it was really scary and humbling. And it also really was a wake-up call, like so many people get when they're threatened with the end of their life, to be like, oh, how am I living my life now? And what's next? And how can I live a better life? How can I be a better human? Sometimes it takes that death sentence for us to look at that, but we don't have to wait for that. What I've learned is that, we could die tomorrow. We could die today. So it's like, have you lived your best life? That's the questions I ask myself now. Am I really being my best self today and living my best life? And so that's a lot of the reason why we got into real estate investing, to be able to create that financial freedom and live our best lives.
So a lot of times when people are faced in that type of situation, I feel like fear tends to be the overwhelming feeling that comes around. And sometimes the fear is what holds them back from going forward and moving past what could be and preparing themselves for down the road. How did you guys take a look at that and did not allow the fear to be the overwhelming feeling that you had to face, but instead let courage and the other parts, the positive aspects of things come and shine through so that you're able to move forward, prepare, plan things properly, look at your life a little bit differently. How did you overcome those feelings?
Yeah, fear is a huge emotion, very powerful. And, I had some practice in it with dealing with fear as an adventure athlete, a skydiver and rock climber and surfer, and was in the X Games doing bungee jumping, all this stuff back in the day. So had a lot of practice with dealing with fear, but more in the physical sense, which I believe for me, it's easier to manage that fear. But it's the same principle. I think whether it's getting started in investing, doing that big deal, asking someone out for a date, any of that stuff, it's the same type of fears. So it's, for me, in the process that I use and then I would coach clients on, is connecting with that fear. It's really just listening to it, quieting down, taking a few deep breaths. It's the same process, whether it's you're about to jump out of a plane or if you're about to ask someone out. It's just first getting your physiology right, slowing your breathing down, which calms and affects the prefrontal cortex of your brain and actually has us feel more confident. It's scientifically proven, we're more confident, we get more grounded, we get more aware instead of in that fight or flight response. So it's quieting down, a few deep breaths, closing your eyes, checking in with that fear. So say it's for investing, just going through that process. And even if you're not feeling that fear, you're not feeling the butterflies or dry mouth or whatever it is, it's in that process of your goal setting. So it's about stepping back and saying, what is it that I want here? What's my goal? What's my outcome here? And what's my game plan? And then just checking in with that fear and saying, okay, fear, I know you're doing your best job to protect me, to keep me safe. You keep me from embarrassment or from loss or from failure or from pain. So I know you're trying to protect me. You're not the bad guy, but what do you need from me right now so I can move forward? This is what I want. What are you concerned about? And it's amazing how that subconscious mind will actually start to talk to your conscious mind and say, this is what I need. You need to learn this. You need to connect with this person. You need to do some due diligence over here, whatever it might be. So that's the process I use. And I think it works incredibly well. It's worked really well for me and clients I've coached through, same type of process.
So after you guys went down to Dallas and you purchased those five properties, is that where the real wealth stemmed from? Because that's the name of your company, the brand that you've built out. You talk about the real wealth. Did that come from those five properties? Is that what your vision was, to create this community, this brand, or how did that all come about? And what does wealth mean to you guys? What does real wealth mean?
Well, I'll start with that. Well, actually, I go back. So it was around that time when, no, we didn't envision the company that we have today. Now we have 64,000 members at Real Wealth, which I'm grateful for, and I'm blessed, and I'm amazed by it, honestly. But back then, we just had people asking us, how'd you do that? How are you investing out of state? And some of our friends, some of our family, Kathy had a small radio show that she started up in the San Francisco Bay Area before podcasts. And so listeners of her show were saying, how did you do this? And she was a mortgage broker at the time. She got her license to be able to be a mortgage broker. So on her show, she would be talking about investing, and then she could help people get the mortgage for those investment properties. So as more and more people asked us how we did it, it was one day I remember vividly, Kathy and I were sitting at a little cafe. We were up in Sacramento visiting my brother, and we just started to talk about, what do you think about, creating a network, just a group of people where we can support each other. We can show people how we're doing this. We can help each other as investors. And honestly, we thought it was going to be maybe 100 people. And it just took off. It started to grow. And all of a sudden, we had a couple hundred members and a few thousand and then 10,000. So it's incredible. So that was the birth of Real Wealth. And the reason we called it Real Wealth was because we had gone to a lot of RIA groups, a lot of these real estate investment groups. And it was almost nauseating, when you get the guru hawking stuff in the back of the room, and it's going to be 80% off if you sign up, but only 10 packages. It nauseated us. And this is back in the day. This is 2003, 2004. And so we said, let's have our group be like the anti-guru. Let's not do any of that. Let's give our education away for free. And we wanted to help people from my coaching background, and Kathy's also a certified coach, we wanted to help people really live life on their own terms, live their best lives. And so we didn't want it to be just about money. So we said we wanted to be about wealth, but about real wealth. And so we define real wealth as having not only the money, but also to be able to live life on your own terms, to have that freedom to do that, to become your best self, to be a better, higher quality person. So just keeping it real. So that's why we call it real wealth. That's the way we define it.
No, I love it because a lot of times, people just focus on the investing side of things or the money building side, but how you all look at it is holistically from the person, from not just the business side, not just building up your income and your wealth, but looking how we can enrich our lives overall in all aspects of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We actually have something on our website now. It's called the Real Wealth Assessment. And it's 20 questions where people rate between 1 and 5, 1 being very weak, 5 being strong, these different areas of your life. And just that key word you said, just holistic. It's a holistic approach to wealth. So yeah, most of the questions on there are about your income, your cash flow, your net worth, your financial management. But there are a bunch of questions on there about your relationship and your health and your spirituality and your free time and your runway for how long you could go without working. So it really allows people to get a real wealth, an assessment of how well they're living real wealth. Most people who take it the first time, they come in at like about a 50 or a 60, but over time, putting the right things in place, investing, growing, putting attention to these other areas, then they get up to that 80 or 90 score on that.
So how do typical people look at wealth, or when they think about wealth, like when they first come and look at it and they first assess themselves, they're like, well, what does wealth mean to us? Like for the average common person, what does that typically look like? And after they go through the process with you and the 20-step questions and trying to look at their lives holistically, how does that kind of evolve after that?
Yeah, that's good. It's really around, most people come in thinking about wealth the way we typically see wealth in America, right? It's the cars, it's the jets, it's the mansions, it's the multiple house, it's the big lots of commas and zeros,
It's all the external factors, the showing
factors. Off. Yeah. And all that stuff's great, as long as on the back end, behind the scenes, everything else is great. As long as you're fulfilled and you're happy and you're making a difference in the world. This is my perspective. And, when I was a coach, I would often, in our initial coaching session, I would sit down with a client for 2 hours and really look at their core values, what matters to them, what do they want from the coaching. And most of the people I was coaching were either entrepreneurs or CEOs or executives. And when I would ask them to assess these different areas of their life, there would be, assess your finances. How satisfied are you? Your career, how satisfied? But then I would ask, what about your health and fitness? What about your fun and recreation? What about your significant other and your romance? And they would be, so many of them be like, no, I hired you to increase my profits. I want to make more money. And I'm like, okay, that's great. We will put that as a focus. And if you don't take care of this area called significant other and romance, you could lose 50% of those finances, right? If you don't take care of that relationship, and if you don't take care of this area called health, you could lose 100% of those finances. It's all gone. And often that would be just like, oh, that's a different way to look at it. It's a different perspective. And so we would coach on all those areas. And so I would see people become happier and more fulfilled. And when we come back and re-rate those areas of their life, it was amazing because you see the health and fitness improve, you see the spiritual improve, the satisfaction, their relationship improves. And then you go over to career and money, and those would improve too. So it's something about when we work on ourselves and we work on all areas of our life and we work on getting that better, everything in our lives get better. So that's the focus for me.
So I want to shift the focus a little bit now to your book, The Wise Investor. How did you come up with that? And why did you decide to write this book? And Wise Investor? So typically, a lot of times you'll see, the successful investor, or you'll see the investor, why did you decide to use Wise Investor?
That's a really good question. I haven't been asked that one. It was very important reason because, when I was growing up at 8 years old, I was diagnosed as learning disabled. I was put on Ritalin. They would have called it ADHD back then, but they didn't have it when I was younger. I was called hyperkinetic disorder is what they labeled me as. So I always had this voice in my head that I was stupid. I would never amount to anything. And I still have it. I still have that gremlin that tells me that, and it's like, even I'm now a multimillionaire and have this amazing business and amazing life, I still got that voice. And I think we all have that. So I realized that I'm really not that smart, but I have learned through experience and through trial and error and through knowledge and gaining knowledge and learning, I've gained wisdom. And I think wisdom is more important than just being smart, than an IQ. It's that learning through experience. And I've also learned how to be disciplined. And so bringing that together. And so that's why I called it the Wise Investor, because it's about wisdom, and wisdom goes deeper, wisdom through long time experience. And so the mentor is the wise investor in the book. And so the story, it's a parable. It's kind of like if you took Rich Dad, Poor Dad and combined it with The Richest Man in Babylon and The Alchemist, and you kind of put all these together in The Go-Giver. It's that type of book. And it tells the story of this family man who is making a good six figures. He's maxing out his 401k. He's got a wife and he's got a couple kids, but he is not happy. He has no time because he's working so many hours, no time for his wife or his kids, or even in his life to be able to be in good shape, to be able to have that passive income. And so he meets this new friend and a new mentor who is the wise investor. And so he guides him and shows him how to create financial security for himself and for his family. And this guy, Ryan Brooks, is the protagonist in the story. He becomes wealthy in more ways than he thought possible.
It's interesting because, in the past, after you hit the ultimate goal is hitting that six-figure mark in your career, your path, you're able to support your family, your life. You're able to enjoy a level of comfortability within your life and, still enjoy the time with your family and everything like that. But in today's market, you can have somebody like your main character in your book who's making the six figures, but he has no time. He's just working the 9 to 5 or even extra hours.
Yeah, in the rat race.
In the rat race, and just trying to figure out what is he doing with his life? And so what does he do in the book to, once he meets the mentor, what does he do and what does he focus on investing in order to build it up and to regain that freedom back for himself and for his family?
Yeah, it starts with the small things. Most things start with the small things, or everything do. There's a quote that the mentor says to him from F.M. Alexander, and it's, if you take care of the minutes, the years will take care of themselves. And it's just so true. So he just starts off with this simple process, little by little, and it starts with really evaluating spending habits. And so he asks them to take a step back and really basically gives these assignments between their mentoring sessions. And their mentoring sessions tend to be outdoors, adventure, and, not this boring sitting behind a desk or on a phone. So this mentor will take them out and they'll go either rappelling or paddle boarding, or they'll go out and hiking or mountain biking. So in the first session, basically he just says, before I see you again, what I want you to do is a full financial analysis. I want to know how much you're spending, where that money's going, and I want to know what your income is. So the basics of really looking at how much cash flow does he have in his life? And he has zero in the beginning. And then the mentor gives him this assignment of, now I want you to really look at everything that you're spending money on, and I want you to reduce it by 20%. And the protagonist is like, 20%? No way I could do that. No. But he goes back and he really starts. And over time, he figures out where he can reduce these expenses and where he can use that savings to invest and put it into investments and have his money make money. So that's one of the initial things. And I think that's what so many people need to learn, and people in real wealth. We've helped thousands of investors get into investment properties all over the country. And that's what I've seen is these investors, when the lights come on and they buy that first investment property, they start to see things a different way, and they start to get into this positive addiction of the savings to invest cycle. And so they start to say, where can I reduce expenses over here? How can I increase my income over here? And how can I use that money and put it into an investment that's going to start to generate that passive cash flow? And it's going to get all the benefits of real estate investing, from the appreciation to the tax benefits. And so there's a lot of lessons around that, about how to do that. They learn about house hacking. They learn about, definitely how the wealthy people think and how poor people think. And it's a big one too.
So in the book, the main character focuses his investments within real estate to build his wealth and to set everything up there. Why real estate, and why not another vehicle to focus on?
Yeah, it's interesting. And it's like in our country, most of the world, when people hear investor, even the wise investor, they think of investing in the stock market, right? And the Wall Street casino is the way I see it. And yes,
that's a good way to put it, the casino.
It is kind of a casino. You are gambling. Right. And, do I invest in stocks? Absolutely. Yeah. But it's definitely not my primary investment. I have some money in crypto. We have a good amount of money in gold, but just it's a portion of our portfolio. But the mentor explains and shows, and there's a thing he walks them through, and he says, just imagine that you have 200,000 and you invest that, and you invest 200,000 into, one person invests 200,000 into gold, another person does 200,000 into the stock market maybe on margin. So they get 400,000 worth of stock, and they do the 200,000 into real estate. And he walks them through the process of what happens over 10 years at the same appreciation rate, which is, they are very similar. If you look at over historical, gold, real estate, and stocks kind of appreciate about that same. It's like around 5% when you look at it in the big picture. And so he walks them through that whole exercise, and he shows them where the gold's going to be in 10 years, where stock's going to be in 10 years. And it's good. It's like, wow, I made a good 5 times return on my investment with these stocks. But then he shows them what he would make in the real estate. And it's this, it's that exponential factor and then it doesn't even include the cash flow. It doesn't appreciate the tax benefits, any of that stuff. It's only just focused on that appreciation over time, because you get that leverage factor that you don't get with other investments, where you can walk into a bank and say, hey, will you loan me 80% of this asset? But I'm going to get all the tax benefits and all the cash flow. Where else can you do that with any other type of investment? So that's why real estate, and that's why the mentor's so high on it.
Is there any point at which the wise investor or the investor himself stumbles or makes a mistake on his journey to building wealth?
Yeah, well, the mentor absolutely did. So it's a fictional story, but it's based on real life events. And a lot of those real life events come from my experience and Kathy's experience, my wife. And they also come from a lot of the members at Real Wealth. And we're learning their stories and hearing where they were, what they did, where they failed, where they succeeded, and where they are now. So I really wove a lot of those stories into this one central core story. And yes, so the biggest one is that the wise mentor who's guiding Ryan Brooks, the protagonist, he went through 2008 and he lost a lot of money and almost went broke. And that's what happened to Kathy and me. We were heavily invested in real estate. We were over leveraged. We had negative cash flow properties, especially in California. We had several properties in California that were negative cash flow. And we're like, well, they'll be fine. They're appreciating, some of them are going up 100,000 a year. And then that hit. So we learned some massive lessons through that. We almost lost everything. And through that, it made us wiser investors through that experience. So we learned to purchase a property that only makes sense from day one, whatever that investment is. Don't bet on negative cash flow. Don't bet on only appreciation. So yeah, there's definitely some lessons. And the protagonist in the story, Ryan, who the mentor is mentoring, he learned some lessons as well. When he goes through some things, I don't want to give away too much because it's like, but there's definitely he learned some lessons about being careful of those gurus and those courses and where you can get sucked in and all that. And he learns lessons about, honestly, also lessons beyond real estate, how to be a better husband, how to be a better dad, how to be more present, how to be more aware. He's kind of checked out on life, and the mentor guides him in more ways than just financial, but financial is the bulk of it.
Oh, that's really exciting because you're able to leverage all the experience and all the knowledge and the challenges and everything like that. The people within your network, yourself and Kathy, have experience within your lives and basically compacted it into this one action-filled book that you've put together.
Yeah. And then I wanted to do it in story form just because I love parables. Like I said earlier, it's like, I love The Alchemist. I love The Go-Giver or The Latte Factor or any of these, Richest Man in Babylon. There's something in a story that moves us as humans into action. It takes information, it emotionalizes it. So it really, and to see it actually happening within someone else and to see them follow the journey, I think it can really inspire us to be like, oh, that's like me, I can do the same thing. And, so it gives us that courage and that resolve to go for it. So that's why I really wanted to write a story, and I'm super happy with it. And, Robert Kiyosaki was happy with it. So he wrote my forward. It's pretty cool. So it's published through Rich Dad Press.
Awesome. No, congratulations on everything that you and Kathy have been able to build. Congratulations on the release of your book as well. It's not an easy feat to publish one like that has so much value to be able to share with other people as well.
Thank you. I'm really, really happy with it. Really grateful and just stoked on it. I'm stoked on the reader feedback that really, when people write me and say, you had me crying at chapter 4 and then you had me laughing in chapter 7. And, by the end of the book, I'm super inspired to go out and do this. So that's the best feedback from me.
So Rich, I have to ask also, during your entire journey so far, at what point do you think, was there a specific moment that you can recall that actually changed the trajectory of where your wealth building had taken off and that you actually saw a huge turning point in your life holistically as well?
Yeah, it was just going back to that moment when the doctor said I had 6 months to live, and the 3 months of not knowing was really big. And the biggest thing for me was around the mindset piece of, I had always thought I would be a real estate investor. I even wrote my eulogy several years before that, just like a personal development exercise. I wrote my eulogy, and in that it said, he was a successful real estate investor was one of the lines I put in there. But I had this mindset that someday I would invest, and someday when I had enough money. And so what it did for me, the turning point for me, was that it changed, realizing that we could start investing then, when Kathy learned that from her mentors. And it's just like, wait a minute, we can do this right now. And it doesn't take as much money as you think. And so that was a huge mindset shift and turning point for us to be like, oh, wait a minute, we can do this. And then buying that first investment property, that's when everything changed. Then it was like, that was like the big icebreaker, just like opened our eyes to being landlords, to creating passive income. And then we went on from there. Now we syndicate, we do ground up residential development, we invest in apartments and funds and all that stuff. So for us, it was that first single family rental property was the icebreaker and the mindset shift. And then from there, it's like, it just starts to expand. The mindset expands of, oh, I got this. We can learn more and more and more.
So how has real estate investing impacted your life?
Oh, in so many ways, honestly, the biggest one that's coming up, the reason I'm giggling is just like the people in my life that I've met through it, because it's a really cool community, especially at Real Wealth and beyond that. When Kathy and I go and speak at conferences, and when we attend conferences, we always meet someone there or several people who are just like game changers as far as giving back to us and us giving back to them. So the relationships that we've established with some incredible people, I would say that's number one, how real estate's changed us and expanded our mindset. And then just wealth-wise, just what we've been able to create and build financially is beyond what I ever imagined. I remember back years ago, I asked my mom when I was probably a teenager, I'm like, has anyone in our family ever been a millionaire? And she's thinking about it. She goes, I don't think so. And I'm like, I'm going to be the first millionaire in our family, And so to go on and then surpass that and be like, wow, and so without real estate investing, no way. And so it's more than the money. It's that mindset and self-belief thing. It's like, wow, I did what I envisioned way back then. And there was part of me that said, I can do this. And of course, there was that other gremlin in my head that's saying, no way, you're never going to amount to anything like all your teachers said. So I'd like to reach out to my teachers now and say, well, look at me now.
No, it's really, yeah, it really is the mindset and really getting over that, not letting your gremlins be the ones who are controlling your life, but letting the good ones be the ones that are louder and speak more for where you want to go in life, and have that be the controlling factor instead of the ones that are pulling you down and holding you back from wanting to achieve things bigger and better that you envision for your life.
Yeah. And surrounding yourself with those type of people. Like, yeah, we have enough devil's advocates in our life telling us, well, what about 2008? Or oh, my family lost money in investing. It's like, there's enough devil's advocates, so seek out those angels advocates, and the people in your life that tell you can do it. And like I was saying, the people we've met at conferences and the people in our network and the friends we've established, it's like, those are the angels advocates who are like, you got this, keep going.
So if there was one thing that you know now about real estate that you wish you knew when you first started, what would that be?
Ooh, that's a good one. I would say the most important thing is the ability to scale, to really look at, when you first get into it, it's like, how are you going to scale this investment approach? So if it's, single family properties, how are you going to scale that? How are you going to get, beyond 10 or beyond 20? And I know people who've done it incredibly well, where they have hundreds of single families and they have virtual assistants helping them. They have property managers. So they still have created pretty much a passive system for doing that. But you can also do the same with, scaling through multifamily, or I have good friends in self-storage. So I would say the biggest lesson would be pick your lane and stay in your lane. Because when we've had failures and mess ups and everything like that, that's when we've gotten out of our lane and we've tried something new because it's a shiny object. But, we know residential real estate. So we know residential development. We know 1 to 4 units. We know short-term rentals. So it's like we stay in our lane. It's what we've done for the last 19 years and it's worked. And the people that I've seen succeed in their area is the people that have chosen their lane and they become experts in that area.
Well, Rich, I am extremely grateful for your time today. Everything that you shared on our show, sharing your journey. Congratulations on all of your success and the community that you and Kathy are building. And, not just changing people's lives financially, but holistically as well, looking at all those pieces and making sure they're growing as total as a person, not just impacting themselves, but the people around them too. And so I really appreciate everything that you shared with us today.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed it.
And so, Rich, one last question. If our listeners also wanted to find out more about what you're doing, get a copy of your book, where's the best place that they can go?
Yeah, and the book's everywhere. It's an ebook right now. So it's on Amazon, probably the easiest place to find it, as on Kindle. Came out 3 months ago on Kindle. And then the hardcover is coming out in late August, along with the audiobook as well. And so you can find it on Amazon, just The Wise Investor. And then for our site and our network, it's just simple, realwealth.com. And then my name, there's not another Rich Fettke in the world. So you can find me on social media just at Rich Fettke, which is Fettke.
Thank you so much again, Rich.
Thank you.
And thank you for listening to our podcast today, brought to you by Bonavest Capital. We would really appreciate it if you can go to iTunes right now and leave a rating and written review. Also, please don't forget to subscribe so you can always get the latest episodes. You can also connect with us on Facebook, How Did They Do It Real Estate. We'd love to hear your feedback and any topics that you're interested in for future episodes. Lastly, to learn more about us, you can go to bonavestcapital.com and fill out the Contact Us page so you can speak to us directly. Nothing on the show should be considered as specific personal advice. Please consult your legal, tax, and real estate professionals for individualized advice.